Hi folks, Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com.
ChrisVossShow.com.
Hey, we're coming here with a blog post. We want to share with you, of course, review the latest social media and technology. Give us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube. Be sure to stay tuned. What we're going to be doing is reviewing today something that's very curious and interesting. The new Samsung Galaxy Note 3 from AT&T.com. Our good friends with the fastest download and upload speeds against the iPhone 5S from Apple. We're going to be doing a versus comparison between these two devices, and we'll see who is going to win. Okay, so what we'll be doing is a benchmarking between these two devices today. Now, the interesting thing here is a website called AT&T took and discovered that the Samsung Galaxy folks had put several lines of code into the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 and had made it so that the processor would run at a higher speed when certain benchmarking apps were run. Now, on average, they found the processor speeds were increased, or the benchmarking numbers were increased, I should say, by about 0 to 5% more. In some cases, as much as 10%. So what we're going to do is present to you today the benchmarking versus comparisons that we normally do on phones, and we're going to kind of talk about what 5 or 10% is once it gets locked off and how it compares to the iPhone 5S. And we're going to give you the numbers to decide what you think about them. We're not going to say they're right, we're not going to say they're wrong, but we're going to present them to you, and you can have fun with them in whatever way you choose. So let's take a look. Okay, so what we're doing here is using the Geekbench 3 app, and in it we're of course scoring how each of these devices come out. Now, given these are the total overall scores we're going to see, so let's talk about that. Now, the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 came in at 942 on a single core score versus 1412 on the single core score for the iPhone 5S. Now, the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 is a 4-core processor, came with a multi-core score of 3013 versus 2562. Now, as you know, the AT&T.com revelation was that there was some fudging that was going on with the benchmarks. Now, the benchmark fudging was on average 0 to 5% and sometimes as high as 10%. So let's take a look at what those figures mean. If we knock 150 points, which is 5% of this total, off of the 3013, we're at what, roughly 2850, something of that nature. If we go to the iPhone 5S, that's still running fast to the iPhone 5S. This is a 2.3 gigahertz processor, super fast, new on the market, 3 gigabytes of RAM, and that's a huge difference there in speed and processor, and it's a quad-core processor. So let's take a look at it another way. If there is up to 10% fudging on this, the fudge score would be 2713, and still that puts you faster than the iPhone 5S. So you can take what you want from those numbers and stuff, and once again, we're just providing this information to you for information purposes only. You can do with it what you will. Okay, so here we have the results of the 3D Mark app, and basically this gives us the app. This is the Ice Storm Ultimate, which compares chipsets. And you can see here the Ice Storm score came in at 18627 for the Note 3 versus for the iPhone 5S 13,291. Now this specifically kind of targets the chipset and the chips, the CPUs, etc., etc. You can see the individual scores they each took and got, and pretty much the Note 3, it looks like, outpaced it most of the time. In fact, it may have outpaced it all the time from what I can see. So what that tells us is the Note 3 is fast. Now, if I take 10% off that, which is, 186 off of that score, brings it down to what, somewhere in the 1700s, we'll just call it. We're still beating the iPhone 5S with the Note 3. Okay, so now here we have the Passmark Performance Test Mobile. This is giving us some other different results. Take in mind, as we run down through these scores, knock 5 to 10% off them, if that's what you want to do. So system-wise, looks like 4622 for the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 versus the iPhone 5S 5163. We'll page down, and you can see the CPU test, 1638 380, I should say, versus 35,990. This test, 19,417 versus 14,589. If you knock 10% off that, still comes out ahead a bit. These tests are pretty interesting in how they're coming out. Memory tests, 4481 versus 4703. 2D graphics test, 3772 versus 2423. 3D graphics test, 1352 against 1911. Of course, keep in mind the graphics tests are much bigger over here where it has to draw 1080p. So you can take a look at those numbers, knock 5 to 10% off if you want, and decide who wins. Okay, so here we have the GFX Bench 2.7.2 benchmarks. Keep in mind this is the 2.7.2 on the Android, just have 2.7 on the iPhone 5S. So it will let you, like I said, these numbers are for you to decide what you're going to do with them. Now, what's interesting about this is the rendering for the Note 3 is a 1080p screen. It's much larger than, of course, the iPhone 5S. So take this as you will in the tests of it. But you came in at 1461 frames at 26 frames per second on the Note 3 against 1371 frames at 24 frames per second. On the on-screen test, 1467 frames at 26 frames per second, 2031 frames at 36 frames per second on the iPhone 5S. Okay, so there you have it. Versus comparison between the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 and the iPhone 5S. And thanks to AT&T for loaning us the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, AT&T with the fastest download and upload speeds. You can go to their website and check out both these wonderful, great phones. Be sure to tell them Chris Foss sent you. Chris Foss tested, Chris Foss approved. I really like the new Samsung Galaxy Note 3, I got to tell you. So be sure to check us out, like us, subscribe to us, and watch for all the latest and greatest phones that we'll be reviewing and the versus comparisons we're going to do with both these phones across a wide range of about 20 or 30 phones that have been issued in the last year. Stay tuned.